Thank you, Mayor Miller, for joining our Center for Collaborative Journalism Ask Mayor Miller segment this month. Everybody's minds seem to be back on COVID-19, and so we have concerns about the rise of cases that are plaguing our hospitals. So are you considering any type of mask or vaccine mandate or other restrictions to public gatherings as we move forward?
I think right now we're dependent on our local and our state and our federal officials to give us some advice on those things. We have a weekly meeting, and then we have daily meetings on the update on COVID, the hospital availability. Macon-Bibb County, what we're trying to do is to encourage people to get vaccinated. We're not looking at any mandates right now. Specifically, I'm not looking at any mandates right now. We do believe that there's some restaurants and some other private buildings that's going to be placing mandates out there. But unlike the schools you have a different environment. You have people who can't get vaccinated in a lot of the schools. You have them in a confined department that you can monitor coming in and out each day. Unlike all of Macon-Bibb County, I can't put a wall around Macon-Bibb County and try to enforce any mask mandate. I think the issue becomes the enforcement part. As far as buildings, we may look at some restrictions later on buildings, but right now we're really trying to work on incentive programs and education, and hopefully this FDA approval happens in the next few weeks so people get more comfortable with having the vaccination. So I don't look at any mandates right now, although we won't rule those out. We look at the possibility of trying to educate people and encourage them to get the vaccination.
People are also concerned about public safety, which has been a major focus in your administration. Since we had the shooting recently, the double homicide on Cherry Street, just a few days before, there was a meeting of downtown business owners who were concerned about the level of staffing with the sheriff's office. And when we posted our story on that, you said those issues have been addressed. So could you update us on what is going on with sheriff's patrols, particularly in the downtown, and your efforts to curb violence throughout the whole community?
I think we've seen an increased police presence. I know we have since that incident happened. We've also had one less bar that's open right now selling alcoholic beverages, so that's been addressed in that way. We've been working closely with Captain Michael Biddick in that area, who handles that on staffing concerns. So I think in that respect, it's working out. We've also are going to start the enforcement of the new alcohol ordinances that we have, in particular those dealing with security cameras, the number of cameras, the quality of cameras, where they're located at, as well as whether or not you have armed security guards or not, and having to be registered and having to have police officers there. Our hope is to encourage locations that can hire police to have actually police officers there working. But certainly we want to know that there's good cameras, and I think there's good visibility there to get a whole picture of what we're doing. We're also been talking to, on the backside, many technology improvements that we're looking at making, not just in downtown Macon, but all across Macon-Bibb County, that'll make us safer, and they'll give new resources and tools to the Sheriff's Department. So we've addressed them in multiple areas. We also have on Tuesday, we have a proposal coming out for a resolution for payment of our public safeties, which we believe is going to not only recruit the guys that we're trying to recruit now, but also retain the ones that are there. We've done a pretty good job recently of hiring new deputies based on the new pay increases that we have, but we continue to lag behind in retaining our good deputies that we have in the longevity piece. We believe we're going to at least take a large bite out of that, if not solve it, this next week or over the next couple of weeks with our new pay plan that we have coming out for our public safety. So I think all those ways, there's ways to increase boots on the ground. We're also going to continue to work with our downtown business partners and look for a nightlife ordinance plan that we can agree with, and we're getting input from them. So I do think that most of the bar owners now get more actively engaged. They realize there's some issues that they need to address in-house, and they're more open to do that, including the possibility of, if someone's been banned from a particular bar or nightclub in downtown Macon, that they have technology that will link everybody together so they can ban them from all the places, so you kind of weed out the bad apples. So we're looking forward to carrying this process through. I think it's going to, it's also going to depend on the COVID. People have been in their homes for a long period of time, and all of a sudden they're out. So the numbers have dramatically increased on the number of people on the streets of Macon-Bibb County and at these places. We'll continue to monitor that and see if it continues to increase or if it decreases because of the possible variant that we have.
And of course, you've also been having listening sessions across the district. Have you been able to glean anything from those meetings anything that surprised you about the issues of violence and possible solutions?
Well, I think we've learned a lot from all across probably the 12 forums that we have, and we have a couple more scheduled, including one with youth that'll be private, as well as Mallory Jones has one, and I think there's another youth forum that's coming up in another area. Pretty consistent. We're getting some common themes around everyone. That we need more parental involvement. We need more things for children to do. We need a higher police presence, maybe more technology for cameras and things like that. Accountability for parents as well as the children. There's been some other thoughts out there that we have to flesh out. We do have a strategic planning session with the Carl Vinson Institute that we're going to roll out in September, around the 28th, where we'll formalize all these plans, and then we'll begin to finalize the regulations on how we're going to put money into these neighborhoods for the solutions they have brought to the table. Things like midnight basketball, maybe the PALS program, some security cameras in certain areas that have crime, shot stoppers, shot spotters is a particular technology we're looking at to show us where any shots were fired and what type of equipment was used, and we could even go find the shell casings and run those through our system to see if they've been used in any other crime. So I think we have a multi-approach on this between the sheriff-led and the community-led. Our mental health has been very active, and what we heard a lot is we need to make sure that people need to get mental health treatment in certain areas, in particular those that that need the additional conflict resolution. We believe if we can get to the kids early enough and do the conflict resolution and make sure we instill that in them, they'll turn to other ways to vent their frustrations as opposed to reaching out for a gun. So they've been very helpful across the community. The civilian group we had coming here from the military done an excellent job at gathering data for us, and we're going to put all that together in a plan in September to help move that MVP program around.
We also have a submitted question about the status of the removal of the Confederate Monuments from downtown Macon. Can you give us an update on that?
There's really not any update on that at this point in time. I do know that it's going through its legal process, and once the attorneys let us know that it's gone through that whatever process that it goes through, then we can give a more update. I know there's a private group of individuals who raised money, and they want both statutes being moved. The county certainly is not in a position to use our own funds to move any particular statutes or not, and that's probably a stumbling block. But I think once the final resolution of the case happens, we'll have a better update. If it does involve the statutes being moved to another location, it will be done with private raised money and not county money.
It's also been a couple of months since you've hired additional companies to assist and bridge the gap with waste management and staffing issues concerning collection of garbage and yard waste and such. Is that working? And do you anticipate any changes with the waste management contract going forward? And what can you share about what you learned about riding the garbage truck?
Well, I think that I think it's working right now. It's not where we want it to be. They're both third-party companies. We're using Ryland Environmental and Waste Management. Right now, we're getting a lot less complaints than before. They're probably down by 80% from where they were before. Still getting complaints, and when it's your yard trash that doesn't get picked up or your household debris that doesn't get picked up, it's real important to you, and you're at 100% dissatisfied. But over the course of the last couple of weeks since we got Ryland started in one particular area, and Waste Management has got more fully staffed, right now we're facing a situation where we do have the staffing there, but they're still inexperienced. So they may skip a road or a driveway or a couple of houses because of just a lack of knowledge of the area and how this thing works. Their scheduling may be off somewhat, but at least they're going back and picking them up the next day or two. There's going to be some rare instances where they miss your yard because they don't know that you're down a cul-de-sac or couldn't get through there because the car is blocking it or low-hanging lines, and they missed you, and the next week they may come back or they may miss you then. Few and far between, but we still do get the complaints, and we're addressing those. But when you have 50,000 households in Macon-Bibb County, even if you have a 1%, displeasure, it's still a large number of people. So you're going to always have that. We had it before, every company we ever used, even with the county. So it is getting better. The yard debris, we hired two separate companies. They picked up a lot of tonnage. I mean, the fees are very, very high based on the tonnage they had, which means we had a lot out there. And since Waste Management wasn't able to complete their contract back in April like we thought they could because of the worker shortage, it got way behind. We are getting caught up, but we're still a couple of weeks behind on that. Some places are completely caught up. But it just means that some people, some areas of our community have more debris, like they do more yard work and have larger trees and things of that nature. So it's a process. I do expect that we'll be completely caught up by September. And I think that's going to be dependent, of course, on this new COVID outbreak or variant or whatever you want to call it. If we start seeing a decrease in labor again, it could be a fallback. Not unique to any particular company, not unique to Macon-Bibb County. We recently had a GMA convention last week, and I've had an opportunity to meet with numerous mayors all across the state of Georgia. They are facing the same, or if not worse, challenges that we are. And they use different companies, so it's not unique to one company. It's just the nature of the beast. When you have less people available to hire, or your people that have the CDL license are getting more incentives to leave one company to the other, you're going to have some turnover. You're going to have some inexperience in there, and that's one of the reasons that we're looking at, going to a minimum wage of about $15 an hour for our lowest paid employees.
We heard a little knocking there. I understand there's some renovations going on here at City Hall. Can you tell us how you're shifting folks around for this building?
Well, we have a lot of vacancy in this building, and we're paying rent at other places. And for instance, code enforcement, we're paying over $100-something thousand for them to be located at another building we don't own. And we believe that bringing them here in City Hall would make them close to us, of course, but also we can save that money. So it's more of a cost-efficient measure to try to get everybody in City Hall that we can. We'll probably consolidate some other areas as well to save money. There's no sense of paying rent on something we already own, when we can use some SPOS dollars to make some minor improvements, and the long-term savings is astronomical. So we're going to continue to do that, maybe more efficient. A couple of these places are in Terminal Station now. We pay rent there because it's owned by the Transit Authority, but we look forward to moving some of those to other locations. We've also got the Bibb County tax assessors that will probably move those to another location, because simply you do have maintenance and upkeep that's not done in some buildings that we do own, or paying rent in other ways. So they're all cost-efficient measures that we're taking to try to improve our financial situation long term.
Okay. Now, of course, you have put a lot of county resources into the Brookdale Resource Center to take care of homeless issues around the community. With the construction of I-16 and I-75, the interchange there, we're seeming to have an increase in the amount of folks who are panhandling at that interchange there. Are there any complaints about that you're addressing, or any kind of policy that you might have in place for those who are particularly walking through the lanes of traffic even?
I don't think the number has increased. I think they're just more visible now because there's been some interruption of the area they were at. I do think that they see an opportunity now to, because of the traffic being diverted and being stopped for a period of time, to solicit some funds. We've asked the State Patrol and the Sheriff to address that under our current ordinances that we have. It is against the law to solicit funds on the side of the road without a permit, particularly right-of-ways. And I've been in contact with the State Patrol as well as the Sheriff about that. Some are repeat offenders. You have the same people out there, and they move them and they come back. And, the question is whether you want to put them in jail or not, and that may happen. Right now, I think it's because of the construction we have going on. I do anticipate, I don't think we've increased the homelessness because of it. I can tell you that. I think they're just more visible because a lot of the places they used to go unnoticed, they're becoming noticed now. You're clearing out the brush, you're turning over dirt, you're moving areas there. So Brookdale's still been successful, and we didn't put a lot of local resources in there. We did put ARP money in there, and we did use grant money. We used very little local funding for that. It's all been American Rescue or CARES Act money, almost 100% of it, actually. And we're looking forward to raising money for that with United Way and other philanthropic areas there. We can develop that, and we do think we've got a sustainable plan there. It's going to take some time to build that up, but it's going to help us get people into housing, and that's what it's all about, getting housing first. And then we're going to have a program there that I think we all can be happy with. And it's going to decrease the amount of people that are experiencing homelessness.
You've earmarked about half of the first half of what you're expected to get from American Rescue Plan funds. So do you have any other projects that you're looking at this point?
Well, so I think that, about a quarter of our entire monies that we have, we've earmarked that because we wanted to reach those most important areas. Number one, we looked at matching opportunities. So you'll see a lot of that housing and food because we had matching possibilities. We paid $1 million on the food, kind of a food bank or food insecurity, and we get $3 million grant on top of that. We did $1.6 million for housing, and we get another $1.6 million match on top of that through the Knight Foundation. And then we did blight. So we're looking at the food insecurity, the blight, those experiencing homelessness, which also ties into to any kind of crime that we may have in Macon-Bibb County. So we're tackling those issues. We also wanted to make sure that we had some easy wins. You know, they specifically delegated the money for certain things that we knew we could reach that threshold pretty quickly. And we want to make sure we fill out the paperwork and we jump through those hoops to make sure we're doing this correctly. And they were specifically mentioned. What we didn't want to do is to overreact and start spending money on things that were questionable and have the government come back and try to offset our funds or take funds away from us. But at the same time, we're looking for matching opportunities. We did an incentive program for the vaccination out of the ARP money, which, you know, is probably going to be somewhere $300,000 or $500,000. But it's going to save us about $5 million in our general fund, which will enable us to compensate our public safety and help improve our situation on crime. So it's not just getting the vaccination and paying someone to do the right thing. It's about saving some money as well. We spent over $2 million just in out-of-pocket expenses based on unvaccination last year because there was no vaccination. And we want to prevent that by having people vaccinated and encourage them to do the right thing and also keep the government open. If we have a lot of people missing because they're not vaccinated and they get vaccinated and they get COVID, then we have to shut down recreation centers. We have to go shut down services, but we still have to pay these people. So it's a cost savings measure as well. But we do have some other plans for that. We've got some part of our MVP is going to require some funds to be expended from that. We're waiting on the infrastructure bill to either pass or get all the information about that before we make any kind of infrastructure money out of that. Certainly the county has lost money through the museums and stuff. We made everybody whole as far as the tourism because that's a basis of economic for us. But we're going to continue to look for ways that can match or amplify the monies that we get from there. At the same time, we want to do what's right by the regulations that we have. So I would look for the next couple of months that we'll start looking at ways to spend the other money. But quite honestly, Bibb County has suffered ourselves as a government substantial losses because of the pandemic, and we must pay ourselves back as well. So I would look for an opportunity that we'll be bringing back before the commission to determine what those losses are and to take that money and put it back in our general fund to make up for losses that we have. And then that money becomes unrestricted, meaning we can use it for multiple purposes, like funding a pay scale. It will also give us an opportunity to meet some needs that perhaps you couldn't do with the ARP money that we can do out of general fund. You know, because we want to give some of that money to these foundations to allow them to fund these grants for different communities we're looking at doing for the violence for the MVP program.
Anything else you'd like to add this month?
Wow, it's we're getting closer to some more economic development news in the very near future. You know, maybe starting to take bites out of large places that we had that were empty before, repurposing some large places. Probably the next time we talk, we may be in a position to finally talk about that. Looking for some great things to happen in other parts of Macon-Bibb County, whether it's Houston Avenue, Bloomfield area. Very excited about that. We continue to make progress with speaking with GDOT. I had a conversation with GDOT. I actually went and met the commissioner in person in Atlanta with his group, and we discussed the Forest Hill project, Bass Road project, and a couple of other things to move those timelines up and what we need to do to get the right-of-ways taken care of. Certainly excited about that. I was personally pleased this last week at GMA. I was selected as a board member, which typically doesn't happen for a new mayor. So I was elected as a board member at large. And I was asked to present our initiatives to the hub cities, which are all the big counties and cities in Georgia. And they wanted to know about how we use our art program. They were very enthusiastic about how we led the way and did that. They were also asked about our Brookdale Center, the Clean Streets Matters that we had, and just several initiatives that we had. Our MVP program, they wanted to know more about that. So we were able to present that to them. We were able to give them the PowerPoint that we did all these programs on. They were also very encouraged about how we set up our transition team. We got a lot of questions about how we chose those people, the fact that they were from a large variety of people in Macon, diverse backgrounds, and people that supported me and did not support me in my campaign. So they believe that all the good things that we've had come up in the last year or 7 months or so was from the foundation of starting out with a diverse group of people in our transition team. So we presented 5 or 6 initiatives, got a lot of questions from people who've been mayors a lot longer than I have, even from our neighboring counties of Houston County, on how they can use some of the models that we have on to amplify our money, because they get little pockets of money, and they're still broken up between Perry and Houston and Warner Robins, and they want to make a big impact with the amount of money they get, but it's a lot smaller than Bibb County. And one advantage we had being a consolidated government is we were able to pull that money together to do big things. They don't work together, I think, as well as we do between the different entities there, and it becomes a challenge for them. But they were all asking me, what would you recommend for us to do? And I gave them a couple of things that I thought would be helpful for them that we have used here in Macon-Bibb County. So we're starting to work better with our neighbors and surrounding counties and take a more regionalism approach. And I'm looking for some great things to happen in the next several months, and certainly this first term.
Great. Thank you very much.